Well, the president has been fighting a mounting list of legal challenges to his agenda, with multiple roadblocks thrown up by district court judges appointed by former Presidents Obama and Biden. No other recent president has had nearly as many attempts to block their policies. In just 2 months, judges have shut down Trump's directives 15 times, surpassing all recent presidents not named Trump. So, Lauren, let's start right there. I had seen this stat a few times that 2 out of every 3 nationwide injunctions issued by these judges at this level this century have come against President Donald Trump. And you might say, well, this would be the left saying, well, he's breaking the law more. So that's why it's so disproportionate. But then you look at who these judges are filing the injunctions. 92% of them are Democrat-appointed judges. So there seems to be maybe some judge shopping going on here and this ongoing dispute over, is it fair to have individual district court judges set policy or freeze everything up for months at a time for the whole country?
There are almost 700 district court judges, right? So one of that huge group from that one area can dictate the policy for the entire country, national policy. When millions and millions of Americans voted for President Trump's policies, it's all in the power of that one judge. Maybe we need to look at things a little bit differently and have a 3-judge panel or something a little bit different. Maybe a Republican-appointed judge versus a Democrat-appointed judge come together and agree on something. But the agenda of the president is getting stuck in the courts right now. I mean, over and over again. And that's the message of the Democratic Party. The message of the party is fight. But when we see the wrestling competition, when we see Trump at all these sports events, the message is fight because you love your country, not your message being fight. The message is make America great again. So his message is his agenda is getting tied up in the courts. And you see Pam Bondi, the top cop, and everyone else trying to fight that right now for him.
Go ahead,
well,
Sarah.
And right now, the New York Times is saying there's 600 federal judges in courtrooms across the country that are working to stop President Trump. They are legislating from the bench. President Trump was elected by the American people in overwhelming support, which includes Democrats and independents, on his policy to deport these horrific, nefarious gang members out of our country. And I thought it was really interesting that the Democrats brought up the fact that, well, we're sending them on these planes to a prison in El Salvador, which I've spent time in. It's a cop prison, not as a prisoner, but as a guest.
That's actually an important clarification.
Yeah, important clarification. I was not a prisoner there. I was there visiting and inspecting and interviewing people there. And well, they weren't from here. So do they want us to put their argument is that, well, they're not from El Salvador. Well, they came in here illegally, not through the port of entry, not declaring asylum, many of them captured in between ports of entry or just in our cities as unknown, gotaways or known gotaways. And so we have every right to charge these people and remove them from our country because they are a national security threat. And the job of the executive branch is to protect the people of the United States of America. Period. End of story. But these judges like Boasberg, like Chuang, are legislating from the bench. They're friends with the left. They actually have very close ties. I do believe it is a conflict of interest, and that's why the president is pointing this out.
Well, so we do have judicial review in this country, right? So the question is it being abused? And if so, are there ways to mitigate that? And you mentioned the 3-judge panels. I spoke to Shannon Bream, our colleague, earlier this week on the radio. She said there are multiple Supreme Court justices, and not just on the right, who have flagged this as a problem when it comes to jurisdiction, saying maybe a district judge, if they have some sort of ruling, it applies only to that case or only to that district. It'll be interesting to see, Tom, how this plays out. The conflict of interest allegation, though, against this specific judge, it's just a photo. Like the guy standing next to Kamala's husband. I'm not sure that is evidence of anything nefarious unto itself.
Yeah, and when Trump used to tweet about judges, sometimes I would say, oh, is he getting in these personal fights with judges? Is that the best look? At this point, I think anything's fair game with Trump. He's proven that he has a way of fighting. I don't really care whether he, tweets these things. I think it's fantastic. And the real discussion is whether these judges should be able to stop executive actions. It's not just Sarah legislating from the bench. This is the executive branch, so they are essentially running the country from the bench, which is terrible. And I think I think that the courts have gotten out of control. And I would say, look, if you have a district judge who, I'm just making up law here as I sit behind this desk, but if they make this decision and they think they have a problem with an executive action, they can flag it, and then maybe you can go through the courts with this, but they shouldn't be able to stop what's going on in the executive branch cold.
On a policy that a Fox News poll found 63% of voters deporting illegal immigrants favor what the president is doing.
And on that
100%.
exact front, let's turn to this. It's all related. The media now wading into some of these controversies. Watch this exchange from earlier today.
Woman
what they're
sent
doing.
to a man's prison, and El Salvador said no.
I mean,
So it's
okay.
the question
Look,
of if you
I
are
can't speak to
suspending
those
the
individual
ability to
details
have a
if you
day in
want to.
court, that you get the list right.
But
right? That you can verify that these people are gang members.
Look, every one of them were here illegally. So first of all, we had every right and should deport every one of these individuals. If you want to make a special case for one, that's fine. But underlying that is the Alien Act that has determined that Commander-in-Chief has the absolute authority to do this.
Now, according to border czar Tom Homan, CBS anchor Margaret Brennan is just wrong.
As far as the Venezuelans on that flight, every single one, according to the information given to me from the field, are members of the TDA. And TDA has been determined to be terrorist organizations. They are now classified as terrorists, so that plane removed 240 terrorists from the United States.
So, Sarah, let's come back to you on this. I think that in our first montage with Homan, talking about due process, right? He said, what about Laken Riley's due process? I think that's a completely fair point, but it doesn't address the substantive concern about due process, because you're having some people saying a lot of these folks on those flights were TDA, but some of them were not, and they have no ability to prove that they're not, and now they're all of a sudden in El Salvador in this hardcore prison. What's your response to that?
Look, right now, and especially when National Security Advisor Michael Waltz brought up the fact that these are proxies for the Venezuelan government. Let's just start with that. There's a lot of different kinds of warfare in the modern century. It doesn't always have to be a full battlefield fight, you know, like we saw in World War II or World War I. We have a battle not only against terrorists living in the shadows, but against governments, adversarial governments that are using their people as a weapon against us. And there is a lot of evidence, according to the sources that I have spoken to, people that work in the intelligence levels, both here in the United States and overseas, that is exactly what Maduro was doing. He was emptying out his prisons, pushing them in this direction. I saw that with my own eyes with a lot of people that were coming here. Now, as far as the flights are concerned, Guy, there are people on those flights. Okay, let's say they're Tren de Aragua, the good majority. The rest, MS-13, Mara Salvatrucha. The viciousness of these people, of these nefarious organizations goes far beyond just a gang fight in Chicago, folks. These are the kind of people that rip people apart. They take pleasure in that. They have done it to children, to women. And yes, do people have due process? Yes, they do. Legal citizens have due process in the United States. These people came in here illegally. They are creating problems in our country, creating a serious national security threat. And according to the people that I've spoken to at high levels, the people that were on that flight, all of them were determined to be extreme gang members, Tren de Aragua, as well as MS-13. So let me tell you, if President Nayib Bukele wants to work with the United States and wants to take these people back, more power to him. Let's get them out of our country. That's what the American people want.
And I guess, Lauren, most people overwhelmingly support, especially these hardcore guys, being kicked out of the country as soon as possible. This was a solution, at least a temporary one, to send them to El Salvador. I guess the concern that some people have is, what if there's even one mistake?
Yeah.
So someone's an illegal immigrant. Apparently every single one of them on the flights were illegal immigrants, but not a gangbanger, and all of a sudden they're in this nightmare. Some Americans will say, tough luck, you were here illegally. Other people say, do they deserve to be in a Salvadorian prison all of a sudden?
It would be unfortunate for that one person or a few people that turn out to not be gang related. But can we look at the larger good here? Have you seen the New York City crime numbers, guys? They're way down double digits. Crime numbers are down in New York when deportations, arrests are up, and the border is essentially closed. How is the border closed? There's been no change to the law. They're just enforcing the laws that are on the books and sending this strong message when you're looking at the alleged gang member deportations out of here, that this could happen to you if you come here.
Yeah, and Biden said, we can't do anything about it without a new law. And Trump said, no, we absolutely can. And we're seeing what the new administration has done in very short order. Quickly, Tom, regardless of some of the details, it looks from a political standpoint like the Democrats are really going to bat for like Trenda Aragua and Hamas supporters.
Yeah.
That's an interesting look for a political party.
Well, it's a bad look. They're trying to fight everything Trump does, no matter what. But these things are very popular. And as to the people who might not be Trenda Aragua or whatever it is, I think that if they are not a citizen, then it is tough. Did you say tough luck? I would agree with that. If you are here illegally and you get caught up in this dragnet, it is tough luck. If they find someone who is a U.S. citizen and they hold out their ID, then they come back and then they get due process because citizens get due process. But anybody else, if you're just some tough guy from South America and you say, I wasn't in the gang, well, now you're in prison and, you probably shouldn't have been a tough guy from South America here illegally.
Well, and they've got lawyers here apparently that are fighting for them, so I'm guessing that will be resolved in these courts.
Yeah, the affidavits are flying. You've got this judge, some of that playing out this week, so this conversation nowhere near over. But for our purposes for now, it is.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News YouTube page and catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis. You will not get it anywhere else.